Jim, I thought in our time together we would tackle the subject of prenuptial agreements and the important role they can play in family enterprises. Now, prenups unfortunately have a bit of a bad rap. Why do you think that is? They're sort of seen like a dirty word.
Prenups absolutely have a terrible rap. And I think that there are two things that interact around prenups. One is they have probably the most negative stereotype of anything that goes on for family estate planning and marital law. No one says the word prenup without cringing. Mm-hmm. And so people go into the process with a predetermined set of expectations that it's probably going to be terrible. The second is that many people realistically do have terrible experiences with prenups. Right. It's adversarial, many people involved, and so their experience confirms the stereotype, and we go round and round.
Now, you've worked for 30 years with families and family enterprises and tackled this subject of prenuptial agreements. When you ask families, what is the purpose of a prenuptial agreement, what kind of responses are you typically hearing? What is their understanding of them?
I think when I ask families, and I often do at family meetings or working with clients, they usually give either an answer like, I'm not sure, or complicated legalese, or they talk about the risk that you have to manage and the need to protect the wealthier person. And it's often complicated. When I work with families, particularly with family enterprises, where there's an issue of shared ownership, I cut through a lot of it by reminding people that when they come to a marriage, they're still a member of a community, that they're a member of the ownership community that they are a part of that relates to the enterprise, and that when they enter into a marriage, it doesn't change that they're no longer a member of that community. And when I remind people that unlike in middle-class life, where you're an individual and you come to a marriage with another individual, when you have either significant wealth or ownership assets that are shared, you're not alone. You're a member of a community, and you have responsibilities to that community.
Right.
And that's part of why a prenup has to occur, is you have to balance your responsibilities to the person that you're marrying with the responsibilities that you have to the community that you're a part of. Finding that balance and what is fair to both parties is what a prenup is really about.
I'm imagining, Jim, though, that even if I was to appreciate, if I'm a young person and I've fallen in love and I'm getting married and I'm part of a family enterprise, and I do have a strong sense of responsibility to the community of the family enterprise that I'm a part of, it's still going to be a tough conversation for me to have with the person that I've fallen in love with. Do you have any advice, any guidance to help families navigate those difficult conversations with people that are joining their family? How they can turn this process into something that could be more positive?
Yes. Young people particularly who come to the process find it difficult because a good prenup process requires a certain number of skills that usually people are still developing when they're in their 20s or 30s. It requires the ability to communicate about money, which many people have difficulty with no matter what. It requires creating your first contract with your partner. It may require assertiveness to deal with the family that you come from and to sometimes tell them to back off a little bit. It requires many things, including finding out the assets that you may have that you may not know about yourself. So when I work with young people, I advise several things. Some do's and some don'ts. I would say, do educate yourself about the family, the wealth, the assets, so that you yourself go in with an understanding. And that can be hard. Sometimes people in the family don't want to talk about it. Develop skills for open communication about money and wealth and to be able to have those kinds of conversations, because that's a skill that you're going to need for a long time. Develop a skill of listening. Very often in a prenup process, all sorts of things are being said, and you may feel offended or not understand why your partner is offering something. To be able to truly listen with curiosity and find out, because the goal of a good prenup is to create an agreement that is fair to both parties in the event the marriage ends. And those components are what you're working toward. It has to be a fairness standard, which Canada is ahead of compared to a protection standard elsewhere.
Right. And I'm imagining that going through that process is actually good for all couples, irrespective of whether they're part. Because to be able to talk about money and your relationship with money and your expectations of each other's financial contribution to the relationship is an important piece.
It's a very important piece to be able to develop those communication skills and to add in something which is to develop some negotiation skills. An important part of any serious relationship, a marriage or long-term partnership, is to be able to negotiate and to collaborate. That requires listening, being able to express yourself, being able to not do what many family enterprises emphasize, which is that negotiation is hard bargaining.
Right.
True negotiation is finding what's fair to both people and having a win-win situation. When you can develop those skills going into a relationship, you're going to be far ahead.
And is it ever too late? I mean, I'm imagining that optimally you want to start having these conversations with your children about the need for prenuptial agreements within the context of the family enterprise early. If you haven't had those conversations, how does a senior member of the family introduce this concept if they haven't started early with their children?
Well, I'm not sure that there is a point where it's really too late. I think if there has been really bad experiences, sometimes those can be hard to overcome. And so it's a little harder to start fresh and go with a new process. But I would say the elder generation can look at how can they support a process that has better communication, a focus on fairness, a focus on shared negotiation, and to kind of do it the right way with a new attitude and encourage people to try again.
Great. Thank you so much, Jim. That was extremely helpful.
It's a pleasure.